What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares to set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who served time in other prisons. We're going to be talking about life before prison, life in prison, life out of prison. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you've built up in your own mind. Okay, folks, here we go. So if anybody listened to Dion's podcast, Dion Sabasis, as we were talking afterwards, Dion said, "Oh man, you got to talk to Jim Brock. Jim's just got it going on. He's only been out a little bit." And just to give you guys a quick rundown of Jim Brock, Jim had a 25-year sentence, served 20 years of that sentence, 80% of it. He was in high school, was first team all-state soccer player at Lindbergh High School. He actually learned how to train dogs in prison, which is actually a skill that he's using now. We'll talk about that. He is a graduate from Washington University. He is a graduate from Washington University, bachelor's degree, and we're going to talk about that and what that's meant for him and how he's used that kind of just as a stepping stone of all the other things that he's doing. And the other thing that I think it's going to be interesting we talk about, he got some really bad news that he was going to go 25 years to a sentence, but he also got some bad news about his son and how he handled that, with his son being a 3-time cancer survivor and has a story of his own and goes out and speaks, which is just inspiring in itself. So everybody, I want you to welcome in Jim Brock. Jim, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Your story is incredible. It's just, and we were just talking about this, Jim and I were, about the stories and what do we want to get out of these stories. And a lot of times when I think about it it's for anybody who feels like they're stuck. They can't grit themselves to take a next step because it's that unknown, it's that fear, it's that whatever that is, you feel it in your gut. But if you step into it, you feel a little bit better, you step a little bit more, and then by the third step, you feel a little bit more confident and you start to get to where you want to go. Jim, that's really what you have done, in the last 20 years of how you've done it. Let's step back a little bit. You were an athlete, you were a kid that people knew about. Tell me a little bit about your story growing up as, your family. What was Jim doing as a kid?
Well, I grew up with my mother.
Yeah.
And my sister. And I never even knew who my father was. And
so he was not in your life at all?
He wasn't in my life, and I had no idea who he was. He left. My sister's a year older than me, a year and 4 days older than me. He left when my mom was pregnant with me. And it was always an unknown to me.
Did you guys talk about it as a family? Was it strange to you?
I think my mom was hurt by it, so it really wasn't a
You didn't
topic.
want to talk about it.
It really wasn't a topic. And my mom, she just worked hard.
Yeah.
And she worked 2-3 jobs to raise my sister and I. I had a pretty good childhood. My mom worked hard to get us into the best schools.
What'd she do when she was working?
She ended up having a house cleaning business.
Okay. That is hard work.
In the beginning, she worked for an insurance company for years, and then she started her own business.
So she's an entrepreneur.
Yes. And she worked real hard and was successful at it. And it was a pretty normal childhood, at least I thought. But as we're talking, you'll find out that kind of unknown kind of just was setting me up for all the trouble that I got in. Because I was carrying around a lot of anger from not knowing my dad and my mom working all the time. And my sister and I were pretty much, my mom didn't really, she had rules for us, but she wasn't there to enforce the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I just turned out a little wild. I didn't have the rules that my other friends had. And that's pretty much how I grew up.
Well, you got into being a really good athlete. Was that an escape for you, or was that or is that how you let out your aggression? And what was going on with soccer?
It was. It really wasn't soccer. It was baseball.
Baseball.
For years. Growing up, my mom did get me into sports.
Yeah.
I started out at the boys club in St. Louis. And that used to be my babysitter. My mom would drop me off there, or sometimes even at 6 years old, we lived out on Nebraska in South City, and I would get on the bi-state and go down to boys club, and I would stay down there. And I just started playing all the sports, basketball, games, swimming.
Yeah.
But baseball was my thing. And I hated soccer.
That's funny.
I actually hated
You
soccer.
know what's funny about that, Jim, is that I grew up in Springfield, Missouri. So, and I love sports, and soccer really wasn't around in Springfield. Now it is now. I mean, obviously, but when I moved up to St. Louis as a 14-year-old kid, going to high school, it was all over the place. I was like, wow, where did this come from? But yeah, I never got into soccer so much because I didn't grow up as a younger kid playing soccer. But man, when I moved to St. Louis, I realized that this was a big world of soccer up here.
Yes.
So you were baseball. What'd you like to play in baseball?
I was a pitcher.
Pitcher, of course.
Yeah. And I think it was, my mom got into a marriage. She met a guy. She was married for probably about 4 years.
Yeah.
And I have a stepbrother that I'm still real close to, great guy. But when they got divorced, we moved out to the South County area from Jefferson County. And we moved in these apartments in the Lindbergh School District. And right next to me in the apartment was Eric Delabar, who is real well known for soccer. And him and his wife were running Concord, which is now Veta up in South County. And I met him one day. I don't remember.
Kind of a sports factory here in St. Louis.
Yeah, I don't know how I met him. He used to play goalie for the Steamers.
Yeah.
He was Slobo's backup. A lot of people in St. Louis know Eric Delabar. But he kind of became my mentor, and he brought me up to that facility, and I just looked at the turf fields, and I started playing. He was having me coach little kids. He was having me work up there, and then he was starting to get me involved in leagues up there. And this was 8th grade, and I started out as a goalie, but soccer just took over. Everything was about soccer at that point. And he was kind of leading me, and then freshman year I made the freshman team as a goalie. And that wasn't enough action for me, so I went out on the field. But anyway, we stayed pretty close, Eric and I.
I think it's interesting though, Jim, because having a mentor at that age and not having a dad, how that all worked out. Somebody's trying to get you. Somebody is listening to the program and saying, "I got to talk to Jim Brock right now."
But no.
But I mean, how essential was that for you at that time to roll into somebody that, and then you kind of attached yourself to that.
Yeah.
At what age were you? 14?
Yeah, I was 14, 15. Yeah. But at that same time, I was still dealing with all this anger and built up.
Yeah.
As a kid, you don't really realize it. I just thought, I was just.
You just thought you were angry, but you didn't know what was manifesting that. Yeah.
And I can remember when my sister had an older boyfriend, and he came over to the apartment one day, and a friend of mine was over there, and he bought us a little 2-pint little bottles of peppermint schnapps.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that first drink, and man, it was just like, I felt like a different person.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just felt like a whole weight was
release.
Lifted off. And that's when drinking just kind of.
So that really did become your release. So when you were becoming this athlete that was a first team All-State, were you also just deep into it all? Drinking, whatever?
Yeah, well, it just started out as the parties, on the
Yeah.
weekends. And then later on, sometimes before school.
Yeah.
And it just started escalating.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I guess we talked.
Did you feel like, though, Jim, that it was an issue, or did you just feel like this is just kind of normal? I'm just doing my thing.
Yeah, I'm just drinking with everybody else.
Yeah.
But coming to find out what I know now, it was affecting me different. Because it was having me, I was being destructive. I was staying out late. I was lying to my mother. I was, doing all those things. And just lying to people and just felt like a really bad person.
You did.
Yeah.
You felt like a really bad person. So let's go into the fact you were I had to have been really known for your soccer, because you don't become a first team All-Stater unless you are good. I mean, you got to be good at what you were doing.
I was okay.
You were okay?
I was okay.
Okay.
I could compete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know that as an athlete, when you get on the first team, I don't care if it's Metro or state, you're pretty good, because you got it. I mean, that's the best of the best that get ranked in that. But you fall off that pedestal. So can you walk me through that, on how that all went down for you, and then where that led you?
Well, I hated school.
Yeah.
A
lot of kids do.
I hated getting up in the morning. And like I said, my mom was working so much that I started skipping school and just fell behind.
Yeah.
And I guess it was the year, that end of summer after I got first team. I think it was my soccer coach gave me a call and said, "You don't have the credits to play next year." I said, "Well, I'll just go to summer school," because I've been to summer school before.
Yeah.
He's like, "Summer school's not even going to do it. You're too far behind. You're not going to be able to play next year." And I could tell he was hurt.
Sure.
So the first day of school
That's
came.
a lot of news to deal with as a kid.
Yeah. But somebody convinced me, just go to school, catch up, just graduate. But the drinking kind of got a little more heavy, and I was drinking more and more. And then I was seeing the other guys go out there and play, and I didn't handle it well.
It'd be tough as a teenage kid, though, to have to deal with that particular thing where we're on a team, you can't play, and then you see your other guys play. That is a depressing piece of what you see.
So I think I can't remember exactly what happened that day or what happened, but I emptied out my locker and I took them all down to my caseworker, Mary Ann Walker. I remember that she was a little short lady that everybody was just scared to death of. And I said, "Here's all my books. I'm out of here." "Well, we need to talk to your mom." And I said, "Well, you can talk to whoever. I'm out of here." And I gave her my books. And I mentioned her because later on in my story, this woman shows back up. And so I quit school. I got my GED. And there was Eric, and he's like, "I know Pat McBride, and he coaches at Forest Park. Let me see if I can get you a tryout and get you on." Well, I made it. So I played 1 year of junior college soccer.
Okay.
And the drinking and the clubs and the bars.
Too much.
And then the cocaine came in my life. And it just spiraled out of control from there.
Was it the drinking and cocaine, or did one take over? Cocaine took over?
It was both together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens?
So I guess I just started getting in and out of trouble. Stole some beer. We were having a hotel party. Stole some beer. That was a felony. Later on, I wrote some checks on my bank account. That was a felony. And then later on, a second and third DWI became another felony. So it was just
kept rolling.
It just kept rolling.
Yeah.
Just trouble. I was just like in a rut.
Yeah.
And didn't see any way out of it.
Just a blur.
Yeah.
So I read this story about, and I guess it would be kind of like in where you were just in maybe a rock bottom moment. I don't know. It was Highway 40. You just pulled over and went through, I don't know how many different places that were unlocked. And you were just looking for things to grab. And then I think you told me, Jim, that eventually that's what caught up with you was whatever you grabbed, the credit cards or whatever.
The cocaine addiction just kind of got really out of control. And at the tune of about $500 a day.
Yeah.
And I just pulled over one night. I wasn't the type of person just could go up and rob somebody, I guess. I mean, I don't know. For some reason, I had this idea in my head, I'll just walk. And I started finding unlocked doors. And I would slip in and just take the money off the counter and leave. Whatever they had in the little kitchen area, and just leave. I didn't break in, and this is what I did to fuel my habit.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was all said and done, when they caught me, they said I went into close to 40 homes. And
you probably didn't even realize you'd done that, had you? That many homes?
You know what? It's
a lot.
It's all a blur to me, that whole, like you called it, it was pretty much rock bottom.
Yeah.
And they caught me, and I was at the point where, you know what? Yes, I did this. I'm done. You got me.
I think it's interesting, Jim, because we were talking about this before we got on. When they finally got you, it was like you were worn out. You were like, okay, I get it. It's me. I don't have any more fight in me. You got me.
I mean, my lawyer was even mad at me. Like, don't tell them.
Yeah.
I mean, he was screaming at me.
Did you know at the time, though, that this was a big deal, that they were going to throw a lot of years at you?
Did I think it would be 25 years? No. I was thinking maybe 10 years, 15 maybe.
The reason I ask you is because I went through a situation, going to sentencing, and when they said 5 years, it was just, I almost feel like the breath of my body left me because, I didn't think it was going to be the whole 5. And so did you have like a reaction to that as this is going to be 25 years? When you got sentenced, did you realize that was going to be one of the things that was going to happen?
Well, I
couldn't get my mind around that.
I actually thought I was going to maybe have to do maybe half of it.
Yeah.
And then later on they told me, no, you're at 80% because of all your other trouble. So you're going to have to do 18 years before you're even eligible to see the parole board.
I mean, that's like federal time. Federal time's 84%. Yeah. I mean, state, you can usually work yourself around. That is 80%.
It doesn't matter what you do. There's nothing you can do in the state until you see the parole board.
Yeah.
And it was going to be 18 years. And then that same week, it's still hard to talk about. They told me my son had like 15% chance to live.
At 2 years old.
He was 4 years old.
4 years old.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, Jim.
So I think at that point, the sentence didn't matter. I mean, it wasn't about the 25 years. It was about, is your only child going to live?
Yeah.
And I guess that was probably complete bottom for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I left that night and got back to Clayton, I was going to try to figure out how to just end it. It was just too much.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I failed at that because they give you a razor and then you got to turn your razor back in. And I didn't know if I could do it anyway. And then the next day, it wasn't the next day. Yeah, the next day, some detectives came and gave me some more warrants just to add on to it. And then the next day, some more warrants. And then it was like the third or fourth day I was in there, they called me out to the rotunda or the bubble or whatever you want to call it again. And I said, you know what? I'm not going. I don't want to see any more detectives. And the sergeant came in and says, no, there's someone here that wants to see you. And when I went out there, they said, go in that room right over there. And I went in there, and there was probably 6 people standing in there. And this little lady steps up, and she walks up to me, and she says, do you remember me? And I said, yeah, I remember you. This was my high school counselor, the one I put the books on her desk. And she said, I just came up here to see if you're all right.
Wow.
She said, I work with the women on the 4th floor. I'm retired from Lindbergh, and I help with jail ministry now. And I saw your story when I was on my treadmill last night. She said, I don't remember a lot of my students over the 30-some years she worked, but I remembered you. Mm. And it was after that meeting that, I just said, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to be there for my son, and I'm going to get through this. Look what he's going through. This is nothing what
yeah.
And I said, I'm going to live a different way. Mm. And from that point on,
I think Jim, I always think it's interesting hearing a story like that where you hit that moment and you feel that moment, and it's still, vivid in your mind. Because I had that moment, and I don't ever forget about it. And how you explain that moment, exactly when it was. You know exactly how it hit you. And you changed whatever. And the thing about it was it wasn't that you changed and life got easier. It's just you changed your mindset and you lived your life differently. And that's, what I think is interesting about that moment is you hadn't even gone yet to prison.
No, they didn't pick me up yet.
It's just you decided that no matter what else happens, I'm stepping into this. I'm surviving it. Whatever I got to do, I got to be here for my kid. I got to be the dad. I got to be who I need to be, regardless of where I'm at. That's deep.
Yeah. So I think it was probably a week later, they picked me up and they took me to prison. And like Dion, that first day of prison, it's weird.
Well, walk us through that first day of prison, because you would have been how old, in your early 20s maybe?
To me, it was bad, and it felt weird. But like I said, I've been in trouble 2-3 other times before. So my son was like, nothing could be worse than that.
Then what was you were going through?
And that's what I was focused on. And I was focused on whatever they have me do, I'm going to do it. But it was terrible. He talked about it. They send you in a room with a bunch of naked guys, and they spray you down, and they send you in to a housing unit, and you're there for 23 hours in that cell. And that went on for my first 6 months. Got an hour out a day, got 3 meals, and that was pretty much it. That was life.
Total lockdown.
And I just started writing letters to my son. His mom was angry. He wasn't old enough to write me back. Mm-hmm. He even says it today. He said, I got all your letters, but I really wasn't in his life.
Yeah.
But I kept writing. And eventually I started calling. Eventually I got to talk to him. And then I guess it was 5 or 6 years later, I remember this conversation like it was yesterday. She got on the phone. She's like, he wants to visit you. Mm. And that was our first visit. She brought him down there. Came down with my mom, his grandma, and we had a visit for the first time.
So I guess that also was your motivation of almost like your escape, with your son and being so locked into that. And if I understand it right, Jim, he overcame his first cancer, and then he had another cancer.
A year later, found it in his chest wall.
Yeah.
And then got through that, some more chemo and radiation. Then the third bout, they found it in his thyroid.
Thyroid, that was it.
His thyroid out. But not really. I mean, yes, he inspired me. But
yeah.
It's kind of a role reversal.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about this before with other people. He's sort of my idol.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of been reversed.
Well,
I mean, you talked about your podcast, how you thought your dad was greater than life.
Yeah.
And he's greater than life to me. And every day I live is to be as good as he is.
That's awesome.
Because he got through the cancer and he just took off. He started doing fundraisers. He got involved with Children's Miracle Network. He got on their board. He started speaking to other kids around.
What a voice, too, because he's lived it.
He got on all these college dance marathons, and he's raised millions of dollars for
That
cancer.
is just so cool.
So
that is just so cool. So he starts visiting you, and how often do you get these visits in your life?
it's not very often. I mean, he could make it down. And he didn't like the trips.
Yeah.
It was like a whole day trip to Charleston.
Yeah.
It's like 2.5 hours down there, 3 hours, and then you visit for a couple hours. It becomes an all-day thing.
Yeah.
And I knew he didn't like visits.
Yeah.
But when we got the new phone system, I was able to talk to him more. And we just connected. We found out that, we liked the same things. And even though I wasn't around, I mean, we're like identical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's crazy.
But it was different, though, than the fact that you didn't have a dad in your life at all.
Yeah.
This is a situation where it wasn't perfect. A lot of situations and relationships aren't, but you had a connection with your son. It just wasn't the connection you wanted, but it was a real connection, which is a lot more than not having a connection at all.
I looked at that, and it still hurt me that I put myself in that situation.
Sure.
And it wasn't there for him. Wasn't there for his, first day of school.
Yeah.
I miss so
Well, you can't get any of that back.
Can't get any of it.
I miss graduations and stuff, and it's like people don't realize, until they've gone through that, how much that means to you that you did miss it. I had these moments where I'm sitting with my family and I'm just thinking, thank God I'm here. My oldest daughter just had her twins, boys, and a lot of the emotion that I have is just thank God I'm here. I'm not there. Because I love this experience so much. How much do I can't even put words to it. But I think those are things that you get when you've experienced something like that, when you get on the outside, is that doesn't go away. Those moments actually do come to you and think, wow, thank God I'm here. Thank God I'm here. So going back into, Jim, because 20 years, you're living a life there. I mean, this is, however you do what you do. I mean, the first thing is you don't want to lose yourself. You want to still be yourself. What did you do strategies-wise to stay you?
Well, my strategy was to stay busy. And I worked several prison jobs. I was involved with programs, with treatment, with AA.
Yeah.
Anything that I could do. But
it does make the day go faster when you're staying busy.
It does.
You don't want to sit.
And I think for me, the adjustment came with sports.
Yeah.
I mean, at Charleston, being a new facility, it was like brand new when we got down there. Even though it was maximum security, we got out a lot. And we had softball leagues, and we had handball, and we worked out and we ran. But just the guys, I hung with the guys that played sports and worked during the day, and we'd play in the evenings. And
did you have some good guys you hung out with?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some really good guys in there.
Yeah.
And I think Dion touched on it a little bit because we're around guys that these guys have life without parole.
Yeah.
They wake up in the morning and they're happier than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And someday I'm going to get to go home, even though it didn't seem like it.
Yeah.
I'm on like year 8 and I still got to go to 20. But these guys this is their life. And it's some of the greatest guys that I met along the way. Like, you'd meet these guys and you would never think that he's going to be here. He's going to die in here.
He's going to die in here.
Yeah. So, yeah, I made some good friendships in there, some good people. But I still had it in my mind. I had to get back to school.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to. It hurt me that I always had to tell people that I quit school.
Mm-hmm.
But there just wasn't any opportunities. There really wasn't any opportunities the first, 14 years.
Yeah.
To really, I mean, I was bettering myself with my sobriety and my thinking and being a better person. But there was going to come a day where I was going to get out. Mm-hmm. And what was I going to do? And it was scary. So I ended up doing 12 years there in Charleston and finally got my level dropped, and they moved me to Pacific, Missouri Eastern Correctional Center.
Which would have been a lot closer to, it's about 25 miles out of St. Louis. Yeah.
Yes. I was able to see my son more in those 6 years there, and I felt closer.
And would he have been like a teenager then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He went through SLU High School.
Yeah.
And then he's got 2 years of big SLU now. But then COVID hit, and he just couldn't do the online classes.
Yeah. A lot of people couldn't.
So he's in what he's doing. He's in tech now, what he likes to do.
Yeah.
Music and sound, and he's doing real well. But he eventually wants to go back and finish.
Yeah.
So I'm there at Pacific, and I guess it was about a year and a half after I was there, I see this flyer on the wall that Washington University is going to start classes, but it was like liberal arts, and it was like Shakespeare, and it's just, no, this is not what I wanted.
Yeah.
So anyway, to back you up a little bit, Mary Ann ended up passing away, my high school counselor, and which really hurt.
Did you stay in touch with her while you were in prison?
All the time. She'd come visit.
Oh, it's
she
unreal.
She became like my go-to.
So she's checked up on you.
Always.
Wow.
Giving me advice, had me journaling, had me setting up a vision board and
that's incredible.
Plan.
I'm glad we didn't leave this out.
We almost did. But yeah, she was kind of.
What a big part of your life at that point.
It was huge. I mean, she inspired me to reach that
wow.
level. And it hurt. I got to talk to her. Well, the way her brother describes it is she didn't die until she talked to me. It's like she was waiting to talk to me before she left. So I did get to say goodbye to her over the phone. So then her brother and his wife said they want to come visit me. And I guess she asked her brother if anything ever happened, make sure that.
Had you ever met him?
No, never.
Wow.
I mean, I heard about him.
Yeah.
His name, it's Wayne and Mary Walker.
So she handed the baton over to her brother.
She didn't just leave me.
Something else.
And,
what an incredible person.
And we'll get into that relationship a little bit later. But so I see this flyer on the wall, and I go back, and there's like 2 days before the application's got to be in. And I called Wayne. This was into our relationship. I called Wayne, and I told him about it. And he's like, isn't this the very thing that you've been wanting?
Mm-hmm.
And so that night, I couldn't sleep that night. I'm like, you just made an excuse for the very thing that you've been fighting for the Department of Corrections to do for higher education. So Next day, I did my application and was accepted into Washington University program.
Which is huge. Washington University, for people who are listening who don't know of Washington University, it's known as the Harvard of the Midwest. It's a very esteemed, top-notch, respected college, university.
Yeah, so I went to, you had to do like 2 essays and had to answer some questions, and then I was interviewed by like 4 tenured professors. These weren't just like rookie professors they brought on. They're
the real deal.
These were the real deal. And somehow, some way, I got accepted. I just told my story.
Well, the good thing is it was essays. That's what us left-handers like. We like the essays. We don't like the standardized.
Right. That's right. And my son doesn't like them either. And they accepted me. And then the fear came in. Like,
what have I done?
What have I done? What am I going to do? I mean, this is Washington University. How am I going to do this? And they set me up with an advisor.
When you interviewed with the professors, were they there? Did they come to the prison?
This was in person.
They came to the prison.
It was
wow.
It was almost like a parole hearing.
It's what it would have looked like a panel. Yeah,
they'll be mad at me for saying that.
That's what it would have been.
But it was a panel, and
right.
And they were really friendly, and I mean, just seemed like really good people.
Yeah. So your fear set in after this, and they accept you.
Yeah,
and so you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Then what did you? You didn't back up from it.
I don't remember the numbers, but not many were accepted out of the applications.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, like, you can't screw this up and you got to do this because you're taking a spot from somebody else.
Yeah.
And so they only had a couple classes, and it was a pilot program. And so I took public speaking.
Smart.
And drama.
Yeah.
With Professor Whitaker.
Yeah.
And he was great. And
I think that's one of the best things you can take in business, by the way. I think acting, theater, and directing, being a director, is one of the 2 best things that you could do if you just want to go into business, because it takes all the whatever out of you. And then directing gives you the ability to persuade, create, and have a scene where you have people do what they need to do, and it's believable, and that's what you need in a company.
Right.
But it's so cool that you did that. So was that all online? Is that how you did that?
No, these professors came in.
They came to the prison.
They came to the prison, and instead of like normal college where you do an hour 3 times a week, we would do the whole 3 hours in one chunk.
Wow.
So they didn't have to drive there 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And what was crazy about this, and everybody knows St. Louis is small, but my son was at SLU. Not to keep going back to my son, but I love talking about him.
It's a good story.
Professor Whitaker's wife worked in the theater at SLU High School.
Wow.
Where Zach was doing the lighting and sound to help pay for his education.
And then your professor was her husband?
Yes.
That is small.
So we
world
connected.
Stuff. Yeah.
We connected, and he was great. And they assigned me Professor Jamie Ake as my advisor.
Yeah.
And he, knowing that I like sports, he assigned me this project to do a play of these 3 3 umpires. One was getting ready to retire, and 2 rookie umpires. Mm-hmm. And that was the play. And I was scared. Public speaking scared me.
Sure, at all.
This play stuff scared me. But she made me rehearse, and she would clear the room out, and I tell the story all the time.
Yeah.
And say, no, who cares we're missing an actor? I'll play him. and it just became like a community, and the program just kept getting bigger and bigger, and then the associate's degree was put in place, and that was the first graduation in 2018, and I graduated with my associate's degree.
Incredible.
And then as the story goes on, right before my release.
So let me ask you something. The associate's degree at that point, was that the end of the program at that point? The bachelor's degree was later as a continue to grow the program? Is that what they were doing?
That's what I thought. I said, okay, cool, school's done.
Yeah.
But Professor Ake said, no, school is not finished.
We're just getting started.
Yeah, we're just getting started. So, yeah, later on they accredited the bachelor's degree.
Okay.
And they brought on more professors, and professors starting to want to come to teach there.
So what's the talk? What's the talk in the prison about this? Because this is something outside being brought inside, which is always something us prisoners talked about at Leavenworth. If somebody came inside, it was the talk. I mean, one time they had a big thing for the Catholics, and it was, there were people brought in, and they had this service, and it was a big deal. So what was the talk in prison about this whole program going on?
Well, I mean, the guys that were in it loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was structured. We were going to classes. We were doing regular studies.
Yeah.
We were doing papers. We got a computer lab put in.
You're locked in.
We're locked in.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about, for one class, you're talking about 10, 15, 20
Yeah.
hours.
You guys are killing
homework.
real time. This is killing time.
They're teaching the same class to us as they're
teaching
at
at school.
university.
Yeah, on the grounds.
It's not easy.
No.
But I don't know. It's kind of mixed. Like with the staff and stuff, it was kind of mixed.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a lot of maybe some. Well, I'm paying for my son's school. How are you guys getting free school?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But right from the beginning, Washington University offered classes for staff as well.
Really?
Yes, they would offer, and still to this day, offer classes for the staff.
That's pretty incredible, isn't it?
Well, it's kind of genius to me.
Yeah.
Like, you knew ahead of time that they weren't going to like this, but let's offer it to them as well.
Did anybody take them up on that?
There was a few.
Yeah, okay.
I think they got a few, not as, as much as we wanted it.
Yeah.
But.
Well, one of the things that they talk about in there, I know it's hard to pat yourself on the back, but I'll do it for you. They talked about how you, specifically you, really took this on so serious about what you were doing, and really very responsible about the whole program, that really got other people locked into it and really wanted to be good also, because you were doing it in a way that it was inspiring other people to be a part of the program, which is cool, because we're going to talk more about that as you've gotten out. But you were doing that on the inside, Jim. And I always think people doing it on the inside is such a big deal, because you're in a bad place. And people who make change happen on the inside, it's like I was telling Dion the other day about the guy the old prisoner that talked about the boiling pot, and what's the boiling pot do? What's the water do to the carrot? It makes it soft. What's the water do to the egg? It makes it hard. Well, you can't be soft, and you can't have a hard heart in prison. But what does the coffee bean do when you drop it in the water, boiling water? And the guy Damon said, I don't know. He said, it changes the water to coffee. He said, that's what you want to be in prison. You want to change the water, not the water change you. And I think that's interesting, such an interesting analogy for so many reasons. And there's a guy who wrote the book called The Coffee Bean, and it's all about that had been in prison. But what you were doing, Jim, is you changed the water in prison. And if you've ever been in prison, it's not easy to change the water in there. Things are institutionalized. You've got everybody sits in the same spot. Everybody does the same thing every day. Everybody's in their habits, and they almost get to the point where you get into your habits so much you're afraid to get out of that, even if it's good, even if it's free, even if they're telling you to get out early. It scares people. So I think it's cool that you took on something brand new, championed it, and really got more people involved probably that would have been into it. And you're following up now that you're out, which we'll get into. But so do you take this all the way up to the time that you get out?
Yeah, I'm in 3 classes and doing my capstone when I'm released.
As you're getting released.
My last. This is it.
This is it.
So I get released in the midst of this. And WashU already had it set up where I could finish online with my professors. And
yeah.
I was doing my capstone with my advisor.
Yeah.
So I finish up and I graduate with everybody else on the football field.
On the real football field.
It was a pretty incredible day.
Okay, let's back up because I'm not going to be able because I want to go into that but before you ever do that, you served 20 years in prison. You finally get to the point where you're going to be released. What's going through your head? What's going into your mind? 20 years, and you're going to walk out the door tomorrow.
I'll tell you what, I was scared. I mean, there was a lot of different emotions. I know I need to finish school. When I went in, we had flip phones and pagers.
Right.
And if you had internet at home, you had some money.
You were walking in tall cotton, yeah.
So there's a whole new technology, so many unknowns. And I've been gone 20 years. So much has changed in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And I can't really describe how I really.
Who's on the other side when you get out of there that day? You get your walking papers to walk out that door. Who's on the other side for you?
Wayne and Mary are there.
Wow.
My mom's there. Yeah, it was pretty special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got out of there quick.
Yes.
Got in the car, got out of there quick. What'd you do right after that?
Well, go back to Eric Delabar.
Yeah.
He had it set up with one of his friends that had a barbecue place, and they had a little big barbecue thing, and some of the professors showed up, and yeah, it was pretty neat.
So everybody was met at this barbecue place.
My son was there, my sister, my mom. Yeah, everybody was there.
That had to be just it was just a blur to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It had to be. And there's some kind of weird feeling when you walk through those doors, and because you've gone to prison, your family's gone to prison because they've had to deal with it all. And everybody feels like this sense of relief, but almost like a sense of accomplishment too. We made it. It's a strange thing, but you're like, whatever happened, whatever we had to go through, we're all here. We made it. And you guys had to have felt that way when you were at that barbecue restaurant.
It was pretty special, and especially my mom and I. I mean, our relationship just kind of took off.
Yeah.
Like probably last 5 years I was in there.
Yeah.
We just got really close. My son and I got really close. So it was just Eric and I. Eric used to bring me food on food visits and come visit me, and Wayne and Mary. I mean, it was just like I had a whole new circle.
Now, Wayne and Mary are the ones that got handed the baton, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
To make sure that they watched after you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's step into, so you, how soon after the barbecue is the football walk of your graduation?
Well, I got out November 29th, and the graduation was
Which is very strange. It's the same day I got out.
I know.
That's very weird.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But it was that May.
That May.
Yeah.
So did you, between that time period, living, working, what did you do as soon as you got out?
Well, I had a struggle with my license.
Yeah.
Over the DWIs from 22 years ago.
Yeah.
They made me go back to court. They made me fight Department of Revenue. We talked about
also
this.
Costs money.
Costs a lot of money. But my sponsor, who used to come into the AA meetings at Pacific, had a construction business. And his warehouse just happened to be right down the street from where I was living. And he hired me.
That's awesome.
Mark Wilkins.
Good job, Mark.
My sponsor. Yeah. We got to get him in there.
No, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you need.
He gave me that start, and he was all about in those meetings.
I mean, what if Mark Wilkins doesn't walk in and give you a hand?
He was on me about get that plan together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he did 12 years in federal prison.
Yeah.
Get the plan together.
Get it together.
Have a plan. And I was adamant about having a plan and a vision of what I wanted to do.
Man, that's so big, though, Jim. I mean, a lot of people say, yeah, it's kind of corny, because I've even said this to my daughters, if you write it down, here's your vision and here's your plan, and it'll work because it's so much more effective if you write it down and you feel it, you know it, and do it.
When I was younger, I thought it was all BS. But
yeah,
I'm going to tell you what. You get to put a plan together and you just go after it.
You start living it then. It's real. When you put it down on paper, it's real. You put it in your head, yeah, maybe.
So he put me to work. And, you know, he was at the end. He's kind of at the end of getting ready to retire, but he kept me working while I was working at getting my license back.
Yeah.
And just figuring out the world and the technology. And
I can't imagine what you thought of a smartphone or an iPhone or an Android.
It was weird, man. I talk about it still to this day. Like, you can't even talk to anybody. Everybody's walking around with a computer.
Yeah.
Like, where'd the conversation go?
Yeah. Everybody's looking at their phone. They get all these notifications. They're just looking at their phone the whole time.
And everybody's texting me like, will you quit calling me? I'm like, isn't that what you do? No, we text now. We don't.
This
call
phone's not for phone calls.
Okay, I'll quit calling. So I learned how to be a pretty good texter.
That's funny. That's funny. So you get that job, which was a fantastic thing. Then
it was great. It was great. He really helped me out, and that kind of kept my plan going.
Calm things down a little bit in your mind.
Yeah.
You've got this. You got a guy that believes in you. Now you've got a graduation ceremony that you're going to be a part of on the actual football field with all the other students, and your family's going to be there, which they can be really proud of that because that's quite an accomplishment. I'm imagine you had your family all there to celebrate.
I'll tell you what, it was the first time I really saw my mom proud.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I disappointed her so many times. And that was probably the biggest takeaway of graduation, seeing my mom. You know, because I hurt her so much.
And she was so proud.
That was worth it. Yeah.
Making me teary-eyed here, Jim. Okay,
I'm just saying, that just made it.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine being that moment for you guys to share that moment. Because I even think they took a picture of that moment somewhere along there in the newspaper article where you're hugging her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you and Zach get to share that moment. I mean,
yeah.
So, yeah, that's the good stuff.
He was proud of me. He's like, you got to keep going.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning.
It's just the beginning. Okay, well, let's talk about, because I got so fascinated with your story. We were just talking on the phone the other day, and we probably could have talked for an hour. Fill us in on what you're doing now, because I think it's just so cool that you stepped into these different things that I mean, you've been out 2 years. Yeah. So let's go into what you're doing now.
Well, first, my advisor, who's also helps run the program and helped started the Washington University program. And I just want to say this. I don't believe that I'd be anywhere close to where I am right now so quickly and so effectively without Washington University and that program.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer, and a lot of people might not agree with it, prisoners getting education. But they've tried everything or tried what they think works.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what, higher education is the key to getting out of this.
Breaking the cycle.
Breaking it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Well, I think it does a couple of things for you, too. I mean, obviously the discipline thing or the habits, but I think it gives you confidence, doesn't it? Just the fact that you did it. And walk through it.
It is. It's the thinking and all the hours of studying and papers and you got to keep gritting it through. And just the confidence. And I talked about it in another interview is like, I can do whatever anybody else is doing in this city. Now I have the degree.
Right.
Yes, I still have the past, but my actions can get past my past.
That's right. Windshield's a lot bigger than the rearview mirror.
That's right.
That's right.
And you're missing out if you don't get me.
Right.
And that's my thinking.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that happened is they offered me a job at WashU.
And how cool is that? Because you actually walked through those steps. So why shouldn't you be part of that job? because and inspired other people to be part of that program. So, I mean, it's just.
So the alumni coordinator position came open, and I applied for it.
Yeah.
For our program, and I got it. And
so you're actually on the staff at Washington University.
I am.
That's so cool.
At Washington University.
That's so cool.
Yes. And my job it's stressful.
Yeah.
But it's rewarding, and it like you talked about, it's what I was doing in there. I was kind of being an example and a mentor, and I help guys do a lot of things, and a lot of the students help me get through a lot of things too. Yeah. We just kind of work together at it. But these guys are coming out, and I help them in any way I can.
So you kind of like an accountability coach for them?
Kind of am. We have a check-in meeting every Wednesday. We have a Zoom meeting. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of just a place to come and what's going on.
Yeah.
How was your week? How was your day? What are you going through? Mm-hmm. And I guess we have about.
It's probably good to do for any company, by the way. How is everybody?
And I mean, we have some guys out here in our WashU program doing amazing things. We have Harvey Galler, who's he's co-founder of a St. Louis collective that's helping with different issues with prison, mass incarceration, addiction, just
wow,
whole lot of.
How long's he been out?
He's been out a little bit longer than I have.
Yeah, we need to talk to Harvey.
You do,
yeah.
And Jamil Spann, he's preparing for law school.
It's Georgetown or somewhere like that.
I don't know exactly.
I just remember reading in the Post article that somebody was thinking about going to Georgetown. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and Jacob Bitters, he just got out. He's already doing some amazing work. He's with this Launch Code company that's kind of side by side with us. They're teaching coding in prison.
So these guys are getting out and they're stepping in the right direction, breaking the cycle and doing the right thing.
They are.
That's awesome.
And Kevin Hammerschmidt, he's working as a paralegal and started a painting company, and he's doing.
That's awesome. I love it. Talk about the dogs.
The dogs.
I'm not a good trainer of dogs. I love dogs, but I told you about Stanley.
Hey, I love talking about dogs. I can talk about dogs.
But you know what I can tell you? What I can tell you about this though, Jim. I do have a special connection to Stanley because he went 3 years in a cage in a prison with no name and a number, and this dog and I really connect. And granted, he's not well trained, but he's the most loving dog I've ever come across. So the training part I'll leave to you, Jim, at some point.
Make sure you get my card after the
exactly.
interview. Yeah,
but talk to me about the dogs.
Well, there was a program. They're pretty much in every prison in Missouri. It's called Puppies for Parole. It's one of the probably, to me, and I'm kind of biased, but it's probably the best program that the state offers. Because not only...
I'm surprised it got this far, that they actually did it.
Me too.
I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah. So a lot of people in St. Louis know about Stray Rescue. Great people. Great place. They actually are the sponsor at the one at Pacific. They bring their dogs from Stray Rescue into Pacific Prison. And they used to bring in, each session, we'd have probably anywhere from 5 to 10 dogs show up at the prison. And we would take these dogs for 3 months, 24 hours a day. We have a kennel in our cell. And it's funny, when I talk to other people, my dogs went to classes with me. They went to WashU classes.
Wow.
And they would do training classes twice a week, and they would teach us how to train and how to take care of these dogs. And it's the greatest program because it gets you out of yourself.
Yeah.
And
focusing on them.
You're responsible for this dog.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. It teaches empathy. It does just so much.
Now, do these dogs graduate out of the program? I mean, do you train a dog and that dog leaves?
We teach basic obedience. There's 10 elements of the...
Because I would get attached to the dog.
Canine good citizenship test. There's 10 elements, and they have to pass that. And we have 3 months to do it.
Wow.
And in the beginning of this program, we got dogs that, stray rescue is a no-kill shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these dogs would stay in the kennel the rest of their lives. They weren't adoptable. And to bring that dog in, and like my first one, and to hand that off to a family after 3 months and be comfortable about it.
And that dog had a life sentence.
Yes. And we turned him around.
Yeah.
And
how cool is that?
I did this like 16.
Was it sad to give away the dog that you trained, though? But I guess you knew he was going to a nice place.
The first couple and a few towards the middle. I did 16 of them.
That's a lot of dogs.
It's a lot of dogs. But they taught me so much.
Yeah.
And I got out, and I thought about doing some training, and maybe it was in my plans to have a training business. But I started getting phone calls, like one guy in there that wasn't in the program. His name was Mark Frisella, and the Frisellas are well known in St. Louis, and one of their Frisellas are in prison, and he did a lot of time with me, and he saw how I was with these dogs, and he would always compliment me and tell me what this guy's doing, how this guy could be better. He was just one of those guys.
Yeah.
But when I got out, 2 of his sisters called me, and that's how it kind of took off.
Just by word of mouth.
Yeah, just by word of mouth, and then I put a little website together, and
away you went.
Away I went.
So you're in the process of taking it to another level, though. Can you talk about that, or is it too early?
No, I can talk about how scary it is.
Okay.
The
nightmare part of it.
The nightmare part of it. I'm looking at a building near the new Crestwood development because my neighborhood is important. The neighborhood that my trouble started is the neighborhood that I want my business.
Yeah, you're coming full circle.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
But it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And times are so
strange
right now. But I want to have an indoor training facility with a doggy daycare, and I want to hire
guys
these dog trainers, the best dog trainers by far, probably in the country.
They learned how to do it. Yeah.
They do it 24 hours a day.
Right.
And I'd have an advantage.
And what a great
and people would love these guys.
And what a great situation too for somebody coming out and having something that they know. I mean, they know they're good at it because that's what they've done, 24 hours a day is train. I love the idea. I hope, Jim, that it all comes about because that's just another stepping stone for all the different things that are going on, like the Washington University things. All those things help get people back in, plugged into their second chance of whatever that is. I was going to ask you, though, coming out 20 years in, coming out, what was some of the tougher things about getting plugged back in, just to society?
Well, a lot of things are still the same.
Yeah.
Not much. I mean, there's some
technology is probably the biggest change.
Technology was the biggest one for me. Yeah. It still is to this day. That's a tough one. And really, it's just some new roads and some new neighborhoods.
Yeah. But not that. Once you were out, you didn't feel like, oh, my God, I've walked into the Jetsons. You just felt like there's a lot of technology differences. Everybody's looking at their phone, and they're not calling me anymore. They're texting me. It's kind of
funny. I walked out into COVID, so
you walked out and
everybody
shut down.
Wait a minute, I'm supposed to be free.
Yeah, and everybody's in their house acting like they're in their own lockdown. That had to be a weird time to get out of prison.
It was tough because I wanted to go out and explore places, and everybody's like, no, you can't. I mean, people aren't going to these places.
In that amount of time, did you stay in touch with friends and people that you knew before you went in, or have you started kind of a whole new life after you've gotten out?
That is the biggest thing for me that I feel, my opinion, to success is you have to build a whole new circle. No, I didn't Now my Lindbergh people, my Lindbergh family that I call them,
Yeah.
they're great.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook with
Sure.
them, and it's been great. Those people didn't
Yeah.
steer me. I did that outside of.
They were supportive, right?
And they're supportive today.
Yeah.
But no, the old contacts, you got to let those. No, I forgot about those from day one. When I told you day one, that's when all that just stopped.
Yep.
And I was going to change, because I think we get in a rut, and that's what it is. And
it gets comfortable.
Yeah, I had a friend draw this field. He drew it in the dirt one time at prison for me, and I'll never forget it. It was a wheat field. And he drew this line in the corner of it, a little road, and just the corner of this big square he made. And he said, you know what's on that road? He said, the jails are on that road, the bars are on that road, the lies, everything bad is on that road. But it's the road we know.
Right.
And that's why there's a rut in it. We always go back to the road we know.
Yeah.
And there's all this beautiful land out here.
Yeah.
That we haven't even
touched.
Yeah. Because that's the road we go to for everything.
Yeah.
And ever since he drew that, I knew that I had to stay away from that road.
Yeah.
And everything on that road.
You had to go the road you didn't know.
That's right.
And that's the part that is, we talk about this all the time in the podcast. That's the road that's not the easiest road, but that's probably going to get you where you want to go. Yeah. And it's over, under, around it, on top of it. You got to get through it somehow. But when you do, man, what a feeling that is. You set yourself free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
So I also have a day job.
Yes, you do.
I have a day job.
And you've done great at that.
It's financially, it's been really good for me. And I hope they don't get mad at me talking about them, but
they'll probably, they've given you an opportunity.
They sure did. But Crossroads Courier, they wanted to hear my story. What happened? What got you in trouble? What was your thinking? And what's going to be different? And I told them, a whole lot's different. And this is what happened. And this is how I'm going to be. And
this is who I am.
This is who I am.
Yeah.
And next day, they gave me a shot. And that was about, going on a year and a half with them now. And I'm probably one of their top drivers now.
And you put in a lot of work too. That's the other part we can't discount out of this is that you put in a lot of work with them. You took the opportunity, but you were there, get up at 4:00 every morning and get there at 5:30 and you're ready to hit it. You grabbed onto that opportunity, and that's impressive because, we were on the Second Chance panel here the week or two ago, and there were employers there. And I think one of the things they were saying, which I think is important, because the employer wants to hire. They've said, there was a guy here from BJC that said, we'll hire. We've knocked out the whole thing of the ex-felon. We want to hear the story and want to hire the right people. The thing is being able to tell that story, to be your authentic self and tell them how you have been where you were and where you are now and how you are the person you are. They want that. You just got to have that. You got to, like the guy said in the audience, you got to grab the job. And you grab the job. They gave you the opportunity, but you grabbed the job, and now you've taken the opportunity and run with it and taken on more and more responsibility. And that's really what that's all about, is having the foot in the door, being prepared for it. And then when you get it, you blow it out. You're better than everybody because you're working harder and you get after it. That's what's cool.
Yeah.
You haven't wasted it.
I do feel like that we have to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
To get. And that was in my plan.
Yeah.
I always said that I have to work twice as hard as everybody else.
I think that that's a realistic expectation, because you can't, it's almost like it's tattooed on you. You're not getting away from that. What you can do is be a person that people believe in because of your actions. But you'll always have the ex-felon, ex-inmate, previous life, previously incarcerated, whatever that, however you want to label yourself. As much as we change or want to get past that, that's there. But what you've done, though, Jim, is you've taken it and you've applied it, and all those experiences have made you an even more interesting person that people want to be around or employ or have their dogs trained by, or any of those things, or be an accountability coach that people say, hey, I want to know what Jim thinks, and Jim's going to give me feedback on that. You can't take that away. You can't take away the brain. And as long as you get your brain functioning, you don't give up. The only way you give up is quit.
Right.
So that's, I think, the inspiring part of your story is you said day one, not one day. And day one is a series of steps. You just got to keep
it is
going.
And it's daily.
Yeah.
It's one day at a time.
Yeah.
And that's how I did it, one day at a time for 20 years.
It's just amazing to think that you did 20 years and walked out and you've hit the pavement so fast and making so many good decisions that affect positive change is just, if you look back on everything, you know, you had the angry kid growing up that was missing his dad. You make this strong connection once you're in prison, and you and Zach, you know, and all these different relationships that interconnected through your 20 years of what you've been through and the life before that. To the listeners out there, what's the biggest takeaway from all that you would impart to them about how you made it?
I think for my biggest thing is it's never too late.
Yeah. It's
never too late to put a plan together and execute it. It may, like when I went to prison, when I was in that burglarizing them homes, I didn't see any way out. I thought I was so deep within that there was just no escape.
Yeah.
When I was taken out of society and put in that bunk in that jail cell, and I looked back, there was just 2 or 3 little things that I had to do, and I could have changed my life right then.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal.
Mm-mm.
But I think we get so caught up
in the rut.
Yes, in the rut. And it's really not a rut. It just takes making a couple little changes. For me, it was getting sober and wanting to live a different way.
Yeah.
And not being that person who I used to be.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest takeaway is if you're in that rut, and there's a lot of people out here that are in that rut that's never seen a prison.
Right.
But they're in a deeper prison than I was for 20 years.
Yeah. I think I see that too. When you get out, you see there's a lot of institutionalized people that they have blinders on and they can't see what they're missing. I think that's huge advice. It's not ever too late.
It just takes action.
It's not ever too late.
It's not. It's never too late.
And I think that for people out there looking for hope or inspiration, the idea that time hasn't passed you by, day one is so much different than one day. And as long as you're willing to just do it, what you just said, Jim, action.
Yeah. Action
can solve a lot of things if you do the right steps. Yeah.
And they say you're 51 years old now. I said, no, really, I'm 30. You know, that 20 years, I was frozen.
That's frozen in time. You're 31 years old.
I'm going to do this like I'm 30.
I love it. What do you think you appreciate the most about being out?
Well,
after all that time,
everybody knows I'm going to say food.
I love it. Yeah, food's a big deal.
No, but honestly, I'm gonna say my relationships with my family, my friends, and I appreciate the guy I am now.
Yeah,
I can wake up when I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, and I don't hate that guy that I'm seeing in that mirror.
Yeah,
because there was many years where you couldn't tell it. I'd put on these different facades, but I hated that guy.
Yeah,
I hated him.
Now you wake up and you feel good and you're passionate about certain things.
Now I'm proud of him.
Yeah.
But you can do better than you did yesterday.
Yeah.
We can do better today.
Yeah.
And I just try to do that.
Man. Just an incredible story, Jim. I mean, it really is. I so appreciate you being a guest here, because I think people need to hear these kind of stories, because I think it gives them whatever that is, that intangible thing to grab onto and do something for themselves. And you haven't had an easy road, but you've kept walking that road, and it got better for you. That's just such a good story.
Hey, if they're in a rut or their dog in a rut, I'd love to talk.
There it is.
I'd love to talk to them.
That sounds like a good slogan right there for your website. Hey, if anybody is still looking for a book out there, I wrote one. It's Nightmare Success. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. The likes, if you go to Spotify or Apple, hit the subscription or the follow button. That'll alert you when every week when it comes out, and you can see what the episode descriptions are. Anybody leave a review? I love those. Anybody wants to go to BrentCassidy.com, leave me a message, check me out. As I always said when I was writing my letters from Leavenworth, stay strong and I'll do the same. Nightmare Success, in and out. Thank you, Jim Brock.